Hello and welcome back. I am Steve Clemons, editor-at-large of The Hill. Thank you for joining us for the third and final session of Century of the Woman. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Dove and the Crown Coalition, Nokia, and Philip Morris International for their support of today's conversations. During this third hour of programming, we're going to explore the concept of a society of equals and hear from those who have scaled barriers, challenged the status quo, and pushed for meaningful change. We'll seek to understand what building and writing rules for a just and fair society means today from women who are rewiring our social gravity in ways that make history and our biases uncomfortable, but also make our world fairer, better, and stronger. It's a big load today. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at @TheHillEvents. That's @TheHillEvents altogether. There's a lot of letters. Using the hashtag #TheHillWomen. We're broadcasting live and we'll be taking your questions throughout the program. If you experience any trouble with the live stream, please refresh the page. That should be a quick fix. I am still laughing. Hopefully you won't have that problem. My first guest is one of two Native American women ever to serve in Congress and the first openly lesbian Native American in Congress. Congresswoman Sharice Davids, a Democrat from Kansas. Great to have you back on the show. I loved our last conversations. You know, this conversation we have today has been phenomenal. I've been talking to women all day about what has been achieved and what not since the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was passed 100 years ago. And my sense from a lot of people is there's a heavy lift out there. My question to you is, you're in Congress now, you're advocating about rights on many different fronts. What do you think our priority roster needs to be? What's that dashboard?
Well, first of all, thank you for having this conversation, for inviting me to participate here today. I do think that there is a heavy lift. We've been doing the heavy lift for a long time. As you said, it's been 100 years that folks have seen women not only have the right to vote, but lots of women continuing that fight. And so, first of all, I think just the recognition and acknowledgement that we still have work to do to make sure that women and lots of other people in this country have the right to be treated equally under the law. You know, I think about the Equality Act that we passed in out of the House that we still need to see passed out of the Senate, but those are the kinds of bills that we need to be looking at, just making sure that nobody's being discriminated against. And then we also need to be doing things like making sure that everybody has access to the same opportunities. You know, the work I do on the Small Business Committee is aimed at one of my first bills was trying to make sure that women have access to capital when they're starting small businesses. In every aspect of our lives, we have to be making sure that we're really pushing forward on that progress to make sure that women have all the opportunities available to us in this society in our country.
Let me ask you a question about the Native American community, and we've talked about this in an earlier interview, but what can we do better than we're doing now to create better bridges, greater social trust? You know, I used to work for the Senator of New Mexico. In fact, we have former Congresswoman Heather Wilson, who used to represent New Mexico, will be on shortly. But in this world, you know, that out there, there isn't the social trust that there should be to try to talk about fairness and equity. There are folks who just don't believe it will ever work out. How do you achieve that with folks that you deal with?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm glad you're specifically asking about our Native communities because, you know, for a long time, to your question, for a long time, conversations about Native communities and policy toward Native people has been in a historical context. And if there's anything that I can say that I'm really happy about with Congresswoman Holland and I being in Congress now is that we have the opportunity to talk about the issues that are so prevalent that are facing Native people, Native women right now. In fact, you know, we've seen a lot of awareness and movement around the murdered and missing Indigenous women crisis that we have, and just making sure that folks know that Indigenous people are still here, that not all of the the conversation needs to be made in a historical context, because there are some real issues facing tribal communities right now, and I'm excited to be able to work on those alongside Deb Haaland, and I'm just so appreciative of my colleagues here in the House who have really taken a lot of steps to learn about the issues and to really try to help support legislation that's going to benefit our women, our young people, and I think that that's something that we have to keep pushing for. And the awareness of the current issues is something that I think folks should be thinking about and trying to focus on.
You know, we started planning this forum a long time ago, and although it does feel like I'm always running the last minute, but we had hoped to bring in Ruth Bader Ginsburg as one of the anchors for today's discussion. Right? She passed. There's a seat on the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett has been nominated for that position now, and so I'm just wondering how. There are people that are uncomfortable with certain ideas she has, but is it an achievement that a prominent woman jurist that secured so much for rights broadly, but also particularly women's rights, is now going to be potentially succeeded by another woman? So we're having a battle of ideas, but not a battle over gender over that. Is that an accomplishment as you see it?
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge how heartbroken I was when I saw the news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing. Justice Ginsburg certainly was an icon, and I genuinely believe that folks like me are able to do some of the things we're able to do, like run for Congress, in part because of the work that she did before I ever even thought about this. And so I think, first of all, it is always a good day when we're talking about gender parity, gender equity, gender equality, and so I'm very, very pleased that anytime we're having conversations around policy and ideas over what might have been discrimination in a previous time, and at the end of the day, I think I just keep thinking about when I went over to the Supreme Court on that Friday night, and I took a picture of a sign that someone brought out there and set on the steps, and it said, "When there are 9." So I think when we're talking about making sure that women are equally represented and making sure that our voices are being heard, that women's voices are included in all the conversations that are going on, when we see at least half, because that's how much of the population we have, or when there are 9 on the Supreme Court. So.
Let me ask you, last night, I'm sure you watched the debate. I had to watch the debate. I don't know if you watched the debate, but it was cacophonous. But President Trump failed to condemn white supremacists. It's just a fact that it didn't happen last night. You represent a complicated district in Kansas. How is that heard there by your constituents?
I think that, first of all, I've been inspired by the number of people in Kansas, in the 3rd District in Kansas and across the country who have stepped up and made their voices known about the need for change. We're in a moment that calls for change. Certainly the long-standing issue of racial injustice, of racism in this country that needs to be addressed is a conversation we absolutely have to be having. We absolutely need to have a president that is going to say that he does not stand for white supremacy. And I think that at the end of the day, the people are making their voices heard. We want a country that stands for equal justice under the law, regardless of race or religion or gender, as we're talking about today. And I think we're going to see I think we're going to see more and more people stepping up and, frankly, doing the right thing and making sure that we're working toward progress. I know that's what I'm going to keep doing. That's what the folks in my district want to hear and want to see. And I think there's no other way around it.
Excuse me. I want to ask you a question where you take your U.S. House of Representative member hat off and go back to your military service, if you wouldn't mind. And this may sound personal.
It was my mom.
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah. My mom was in the Army for 20
years.
Oh,
you were in the Army for 20 years. I have it. You were in the Army for 20 years.
Oh, no. Yeah, my mom, I'm an Army brat.
Okay, well, I'm an Air Force brat. Well, let me. So at least you know the Army. So this is what my folks told me. You were in the Army. I said, boy, you've been in the Army for 20 years. You wear it well. But I mean, I think that I think that the question I have here is, I have Tina Chen coming up. Tina Chen, of course, is the CEO and founder of Time's Up. And one of the struggles, it comes up when there's a flare-up, but we don't often talk about it when things are battened down or more quiet or we're distracted. But it's about misogyny in the military, sexual harassment and violence in the military. And, in Kansas, there's a very big military, I was born in Kansas, Oklahoma, that area, with a lot of military families. I guess my question to you is do you see that as a problem that's being rectified? Tina Chen is going to come up in a bit, but on the military side, I thought you may have served, but you were not there. But with your mom, do you think that that's on a positive move, or is this something that we continue to bury in unhealthy ways?
Because my mom is the one who actually served in the Army, I do want to take the time to share maybe a little bit of what she's shared with me. When I applied to be a White House fellow and I was going to come out here, I spent a year at the Department of Transportation. Her and I ended up having a lot of conversations about her early days in the Army. My mom joined the Army in 1979. And that certainly was a very different time than where we're at right now. And she shared with me that early in her career, she actually participated in some of the conversations that the military was having around sexual harassment. And I thought it was just such an eye-opening conversation that I had the chance to have with my mom about her early days in the military. And certainly every aspect of our society, we have room for growth. We always will. We're raising up these issues. We're trying to address these issues. I know that there are a lot of members of Congress who are either on Veterans Affairs or on the Armed Services Committee who are also trying to make sure that legislatively we're enabling progress to happen. And I think from the conversations I've had with my mom to the conversations that I'm having now about where we're at, the fact that we know that there are issues that need to be addressed, I'm just glad we're past that point and we're on to the point where we're trying to figure out what are the real solutions that we can put into place to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and to make sure that women are not subject to any kind of harassment or other issues that they might have to deal with because of gender. And so I do think that there's progress being made, and I also think we can always do better. We can always keep working toward making it better for everybody.
And let me just say finally, you mentioned the Equality Act. You've been a big advocate for LGBT rights, and I thank you for that. It's so important. But I mean, are you worried about any rollback of rights that have been recently secured that we should be waving red flags about?
I think that we need to be, so first of all, I think all of us should always be cognizant and mindful of the fact that we have to continue to work toward making sure that everybody's aware of the issues that women are facing, that our LGBTQIA communities are facing, and then particularly when we're talking about these issues, that we think about how it impacts our young people. And we've seen a number of steps and moves from the Secretary of Education that I have not agreed with in terms of, protections for our LGBTQ youth while they're at school. I think we need to be really mindful of how we take care of our young people. Unfortunately, our young people face issues around suicide and mental and behavioral health issues at higher rates. And so ways that we can help make sure that we're taking care of our young people is by fighting for things like the Equality Act, making sure that we're not supporting folks who are out there saying disparaging things about the entire community. But, when you've got a commander-in-chief that says negative things about our service members who are of trans experience, I think these are the kinds of things that we really need to push back against that stuff and make sure that everybody knows that that they're valued, that they're important, and that they have every right to exist without discrimination as anybody else.
Well, Representative Sharice Davids,
I think
that was a call to a vote, and I think that's really cool. I love it. We didn't just set that up. That was done. That's in real time. Thank you so much for your time and thoughtful candor today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.